welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to join us for today's Excellence in Management session, which is all about how we harness the power and the art of prioritizing our daily tasks. So we're going to take some time today to review the whys and the benefits behind creating that elusive to-do list, as well as how we find a to-do list medium that's right for you. We're also going to talk about the specific strategies we have for prioritizing our to-do list. One of them we're going to talk about is in the title, the 3Ds. And the 3Ds is one of many ways that can help you prioritize tasks. But we're going to spend time discussing this method as well as a few others to try to give you some suggestions of things that might work for you. Because like with most of our self-management topics, it's important we find what works for us and our unique styles. So today, all you'll need for this session is a pen, a piece of paper, and an open mind. You might, maybe not be a pen and paper type person and you're using your computer or your phone to take notes. But either way, just a medium to capture some of the details and an open mind. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's take a moment to center ourselves with a brief reflection. This reflection, or it's a quick quote by Henry David Thoreau, and I thought it was perfect for today. He says, "It's not enough to be busy, so are the ants. The question is, what are we busy about?" So today we're going to discuss how you can determine if you're busy on the right tasks, the ones that are most impactful to you, to your goals, and for the organization as a whole. So ask yourself, which one comes first, the compass or the clock? Before one can truly manage our time, which is the clock, it's important to know where you're going, what your priorities and your goals are, and in which direction you're headed, which is our compass. Where you are headed is more important than how fast you're going. Rather than always focus on what's urgent, we need to learn to focus on what's really important. So what are you doing to ensure that you're doing the most impactful tasks? Does what you do each day align with your personal goals and with the company's strategic priorities? If you can answer yes to these questions, then it's time to master your day-to-day. But if you're unsure, it's probably worth revisiting your goals and ensuring that they're as effective as possible. You may want to talk to your supervisor and your manager about what you're doing each day to make sure that they're having the greatest impact on the organization you possibly can. So let's get started on breaking down our day-to-day. You've probably all heard this or even seen this before from us, but it's true. No dream comes true until you wake up and go to work, and that's what we're going to do. Let's wake up and go to work. Let's break down each day to the most important tasks and really make the most impact we possibly can. But honestly, it really sounds easier than it is. Otherwise, we'd be doing this flawlessly. In a 2012 global survey on LinkedIn, it showed that 63% of professionals surveyed are currently making a to-do list. However, only 11% of those individuals were actually getting everything they set out to accomplish finished in a day. So why is there that huge disconnect? Clearly, most of us are on board with and actually create a to-do list every day, but finishing them, well, that's a different story. So why do we set a to-do list in the first place? There are obviously resounding benefits to getting organized. So let's take a moment to touch on a few. Because if you fall into that 37% of individuals who aren't even putting a to-do list together, maybe this will help change your mind. First, they improve your outcomes. It helps to know your destination. You're more likely to find a way to get there, and more efficiently. Again, think about the road trip without a map. If you're driving to a destination and you don't know how to get there, you're going to waste time, money, gas, resources. So knowing your outcome means you have less waste. It improves your memory. When you write things down, you verbalize them, they're all acts of helping you remember. So when you make lists, you exercise your brain power. It helps prevent forgetfulness by improving your memory, but also by creating a system to come back to if you get busy or distracted. It prevents you forgetting due to stress. You can use your tools and your mediums to help set reminders. It reduces stress. You can reduce anxiety when you know what you need to accomplish. And there's an actual brain response, a physiological response that has that nagging feeling. Oh, I feel like I'm forgetting something. Feel like I'm forgetting something. That creates a physiological response in our body. And it doesn't necessarily help us remember what we're forgetting. It just reminds us that we are forgetting. So writing that down, creating our to-do list, actually turns that response off and reduces our stress. It provides clarity. Setting timelines, it allows you to know your boundaries and your resources. It's a clear picture of what needs to happen in order to accomplish your task. And it creates order. There's usually a logical order for the tasks that we have to accomplish. And it helps us determine how we need to use our time. So writing it down helps you find that logical order. And it gives us time to celebrate. It allows you the time to celebrate your accomplishments and achievements, no matter how small they might seem. And it's the first step to time management. If you can master your day-to-day to-do list, it's the first step to mastering how well you use your time in general. So there's resounding benefits of mastering a to-do list. So take a moment to read the graphic on the slide. Is this you? That you make a to-do list, you cross things off, and then you celebrate? That's what to-do lists are for you? Because to-do lists, in theory, seem pretty straightforward. All the tasks you plan to accomplish in any one given day or week. But many times we allow our to-do list to balloon to unrealistic levels, and we end up feeling overwhelmed. And that's probably because we're using them as a catch-all for every task we can possibly think of. Instead, our list should be derived from our larger goals and include tasks that move us toward these big picture items. Achieving our goals and making our deadlines, which is what a to-do list is all about, is oftentimes harder than it seems. It seems straightforward and simple in theory, but there's a measurable art in effectively using a to-do list, regardless of your style or approach, which we're going to talk about throughout this session. Because list making is a really personal thing. Some of us border on obsessive, while others, we prefer to wing it, writing important details on scraps of paper or even the back of our hands. The most basic to-do list helps us get one step closer to tackling our goals. And when we write out our to-do list, it forces us to set concrete, measurable goals each and every day. But first we need to pick a medium. Our to-do lists come in all shapes and sizes, so it's all about what works for you as an individual. As long as our end results are clear and they're meeting the organization's needs, how we get there should be flexible to meet our specific styles. So let's talk about a few mediums you could use for staying organized. Hopefully one of these methods will already resonate with you, which means somewhere down the line, you're using a to-do list to help you keep track of and measure your productivity. Because that's all a to-do list is, right? To measure productivity. So whether that's your list for the grocery store, of chores you need to do on the weekend, or the tasks you need to do in any given workday, having them written down clearly has benefits. So let's review some of the approaches you might already be using. How about our Post-it noter? If you have a love for Post-it notes as a tool to stay organized and aren't afraid to use them, yes, you know who I'm talking about, you probably absorb information visually. Jotting down tasks on colors and different shapes turns on your brain and helps you remember to-dos rather than if you were just using a white notepad or your electronic device. However, there are some challenges to using Post-it notes as a way to stay organized. They can be hard to keep up with and hard to, keep with you because they're not always there when you need them. They might be on your desk or in a notepad or in your planner. But you can get organized even when using Post-it notes to do your to-do lists. Maybe use folders to organize multiple notes by topic. So grab those manila folders out of the supply drawer, and allow yourself to organize notes by topic or project or resource. You can even use a whiteboard to centralize and organize your Post-it notes. They're easy to move around, peel off when they're complete, and toss when you're finished with the task. Focus on finding one neat place to organize your notes so it can make your to-do list less overwhelming and easier to prioritize what you need to do. You can use different color notes to denote urgency or topic and easily move the order to support the changes in priority. And you're enhancing that visual component by having an appealing place to organize these notes while putting them to good use. So what about using the scrap of paper? When a to-do comes to mind for this individual, no napkin, receipt, old report, or notepad is safe from your graffiti. You appreciate speed and convenience over anything else. You reach for the closest writing utensil and scrap of paper you see to jot down the idea before it escapes you, and that might even be the back of your hand. Since it's easiest to misplace your to-dos when they're written in multiple places, it's most important to get organized. Don't change your approach, change how you organize regularly. So it's easy to avoid, forgetting or misplacing. So it's important to consolidate those into one central place on a regular basis. When you use anything you can find to track your notes, it's easy to work harder, not smarter, when your stuff isn't all in one place. So think about having to make multiple attempts to complete a task, such as multiple trips to the grocery store. If you find yourself as one of those people because you're anti-list making, putting all your notes in one place, your scraps of paper, your old napkins, maybe in a folder, in a pocket in your work bag, in the console of your car, and making a plan to consolidate them on a daily basis allows you to keep track of the important tasks within your day-to-day routine. So for those of you who like to use any scrap of paper you can find, make sure you consolidate regularly. And for those of you who like traditional pen and paper to stay organized, and that's one sheet of paper, not any sheet of paper, you can relate to a long list of things to do. People who are most comfortable with pen and paper to stay organized, whether that's a notepad, your daily planner, a written agenda, you have tactile personalities. You need a list you can feel in your hands, and you get as much satisfaction from writing the list as you do from crossing completed tasks. The biggest downfall to this approach is there's often no rhyme or reason to the order of your list. Whatever is top of mind gets written down first, which makes it very easy to get overwhelmed by what you're setting out to accomplish. To avoid feeling like your to-do list runs you, try categorizing your list by type of project, or time of day it needs to be completed, or when or where or how it needs to be accomplished. By simply breaking down tasks into smaller groups, it can help you prioritize and combine like items together, maybe even saving yourself some time in the long run. And maybe you use a smartphone to get organized or to capture your to-do list. And it's fairly similar to those paper organizers. It's that you have one list, and it tends to be just as long and ill-structured whether you're using a notepad or a smartphone. Whether you like to keep your list on your phone, tablet, or your computer, chances are you could still benefit from some structure to your list. So whether that's breaking it down, as we talked about with the paper users, by when and how, or the resources, or the type of task, or maybe that's implementing the use of an application on your smartphone or your tablet that might help you prioritize for you. Such applications might be Todoist, Remember the Milk, or Evernote. These are just examples of some free or inexpensive tools that are available to you if you're already using this electronic medium. And last but not least, we've got the type A approach to list making, which you may find yourself as a master to-do list maker already. And regardless of the tool, the type, or the medium, you're already fantastic at it. You're probably insanely organized. You have color-coded, neatly tabbed, and precisely filed information. Organizing is a part of your DNA. Because you feel most in control when you're making a list, you're more likely to transfer your to-dos from one day to the next without actually crossing items off or making progress. So you need to take a look at what's being carried over. They're probably too broad, lacking details, or even too challenging without breaking them down first. The part of our brain that helps us to stay motivated responds best to tasks that are specific and immediate. So, our type A's need to make our detailed lists time sensitive in order to get the maximum effect from your organizational skills. So it really doesn't matter which type of medium you use to make your lists. The important thing is that you're capturing the details of what you need to accomplish in order to meet your goals. Having your information written down on Post-it notes, scraps of paper, a notepad, or even your smartphone is all you need to begin the process of effectively prioritizing. If you don't have a to-do list started, we'll call this your master list of things to do, that's your homework assignment. The most important thing you can do for your progress at work is to capture everything you need to do in one place. Only then will you truly be able to prioritize your day-to-day. So if you don't have a master list of everything you need to accomplish all in one place, you better get started. If you do, this is where when you have a thought, you can jot it down immediately and then delete it from your mind. It allows your mind to be a strategic thinker instead of being your memory chip. So it could be an all-in-one notebook, an Excel spreadsheet, or a Word document. It's everything you need and want to do. So once you have that master list, what do you do with it, right? Well, we're going to break it down. First, you want to batch your tasks. And what I mean by this is you want to separate tasks into groups of other like tasks. This can help you improve productivity when you work on like tasks at the same time, which prevents you from jumping around and wasting time. So think about it. If you do one email at a time as they come in versus doing emails for an hour, which one's more effective? The constant interruption or the blocked time to focus? I think we know the answer to that. So for those of you who are using, the paper method or the phone method or type A, you might already have a list. Now you just need to group it together. Then we need to determine the most important tasks. Figure out from your master list which tasks are the most important for you to focus on. We do a catch-all on our list. Not everything is the most important. How do you identify those? And then you stay specific. You list the details you need to do to complete each task. If it's on the list, you need supporting details. If you can't provide supporting details, ask yourself, does it really need to be on the list today? For example, I need to call Joe, but I don't have his number. Calling Joe is not the task that I need to have at hand. It's the wrong task. I need to get Joe's phone number before I can call Joe. Get specific. And then time it. Put time frames on it and stick to them. You can even turn your to-do list into a kind of schedule with specific time frames. If you know it usually takes you 2 hours to run a particular report, schedule 2 hours and stick to it. There's a tremendous amount of research that shows if you set when and where you're going to do something, you'll actually do it. If items stay on your list or get carried over from day to day, then you need to do it right away, schedule it for the future, or consider postponing it for another more appropriate time. This is a lot like a food log. You've got to log it to measure input and output. How else do you know how or what you need to change if you're not measuring it and putting time to it? And then you need to make it public. You need to share your weekly goals, your daily goals with your team members and your supervisor. You can do so in your regular meetings or your one-on-ones. It'll be a great way to check to see if your priorities align and see if there are opportunities to collaborate on your tasks. But mastering your time and prioritizations is about taking it one step at a time, right? We eat the elephant one bite at a time. Managing our day is exactly the same. The more specific and measurable a task is, the easier it is to get accomplished. So we created our master list and we started breaking it down. What's our next step? Well, We actually have to sit down and make a to-do list every day in order for it to work effectively. Pick a time. Is it in the morning? Is it at the end of the day? Where you can organize your daily tasks and determine what still needs to be accomplished. This allows you to know what you need to be working on immediately. It reduces your distractions and your time wasters. The most important time you have each day will be the time you spend planning what you need to accomplish. Without that, we're back to traveling to a destination without a map, which is an inevitable waste of our time and resources. You should try to do this daily, at least once a week at a minimum. Because how can you adjust your needs if you don't have a plan? So think about it in the way of our driving trip. Let's not be a waste of our time and our gas. So how do you master your schedule? How do you make it work? We have to plan for interruptions. When we schedule ourselves back to back, we don't allow for the interruptions and the inevitable change of course. So allow yourself at minimum 15 minutes of cushion between tasks to handle those interruptions and avoid getting off track. If items do pop up that need your attention, you can then easily adjust your schedule based on what's most important. Remember, the success of mastering a to-do list is the art of being flexible. Think about the concept of office hours. If you schedule time for interruptions, then you're having time for planned interruptions, which are more effective. Again, it's the one at a time interruption versus, interruptions all day that don't allow you to get into a groove, like one email at a time versus batching our emails. Try having one calendar, both a calendar for work and for personal. And then you can clearly see the stop and start times to balance the demanding needs of your work and personal lives. And when we realize that long to-do lists become really unproductive, we see that appointment books work. Scheduling appointments with ourselves to do items on our to-do lists actually works. When we create time blocks for our high priority items and have the actual discipline to start and end on time, appointments with yourself become easier. So when we think about appointments with ourselves to meet our daily high impact goals, they should be just as important as your appointments with other people. So what's left? What else do we need to do in order to master our to-do list? Well, we need to put it into action. So how do you prioritize? I like the term prioritize ruthlessly, which means learning the art of saying no appropriately. To-do lists oftentimes get created when we have lists of things to do that are too long to remember, which means ultimately we end up with lists too long to actually complete. That's high stress. Daily to-do lists show us how important it is to be realistic about how much time we have and what our priorities are. If we're struggling to complete our to-do list on a regular basis, we need to make a change to the list. Make it more realistic. Although our list of items to be accomplished can seem to go on and on and on, our time does not. We need to match the tasks we require of ourselves to how much time and energy we can afford to spend on them. We'll give you some tips as we go through the rest of the session on how to prioritize ruthlessly. And it's important to remember, to each his own. As with pretty much any other kind of productivity topic, our individual results are going to vary. Our needs are going to vary. We all need to take into account our individual styles, our unique situations, and our personalities when experimenting with an approach that works for us. What works for you may not work for your peer, may not work for your manager. But we should all have the basics of list making down. We know we can use any medium that's comfortable for us as long as we have a consistent way to stay organized, check in on our tasks, and break them down into measurable chunks. We see the value in scheduling the time. We prepare for interruptions, and we do the work each day. But how does this turn into making our priorities happen day in and day out? There's an art to organizing your to-do list that we haven't yet discussed, but We had to get a handle on our current tasks before we could talk about how we take it a step further. So let's review some proven approaches that you might want to start trying to prioritize your daily tasks. So we're going to start by finding your own path. Just like with your to-do list mediums, how you prioritize is going to be unique to your own style. What you do need to consider is your time, the effort it takes to complete the task, the deadline, and the resources you'll need, all while measuring it against the impact it's going to have on the organization. When we waste our time working on the wrong task, that's time we'll never get back. So how do you determine if you're working on a task that has the most impact for you, your team, or the organization? We're going to narrow down some concepts for you hopefully it helps you understand the difference between working hard and being effective. We're going to take a look at a few prioritization concepts. Maybe one will strike you as interesting and you can look into making it work for you. Our needs when it comes to prioritization are going to be different. The important thing is that you keep trying something until you find a method that works for you. These concepts are all built upon the basics we've already talked about. We're just laying the foundation for making these priorities happen, and you can't begin to prioritize if you don't know what you need to accomplish. So each of these concepts we're going to go over are going to help you know what your priorities are, put them in rank order, and have a system to keep track of them, whether that's daily or weekly, to get to your goals. So let's get started first with the 3D philosophy. So this first concept we're going to talk about is the 3Ds, the do it, delegate it, or dump it. It's pretty straightforward and honestly one of the most thought-provoking methods out there because it addresses the concept up front regarding dumping items off your list. Just because we put it on our list doesn't mean we have to do them all, only if they add value today. But how do you know what adds value? We have to question each task to find its merit, the specifics, and how we measure its success. This is also a great concept for those individuals who struggle with asking for help from their team members, their managers, or maybe they struggle with delegating because they want to do it all. If you're trying to do it all, you're probably feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and maybe even frustrated. And it's because you're trying to do too much, and then you lose sight of what's really important in the first place. So let's take a moment to break down each D and give it a little more meaning. So let's talk about do it. These are the tasks you have to do yourself. The essential tasks. They aren't my want tos, but my have tos. Once you've identified all the items on your master list that only you can do, then you can prioritize in order of importance and urgency. What are the tasks that allow you to have the greatest impact first? Then you do those. It allows you to group like tasks together, make all your phone calls, answer emails in batches, run your reports together. It allows you to make the most out of your prime time. What do we mean by that? That's the time when you have the most energy or the least amount of interruptions. Save your most important tasks for that time. And it allows you to regularly check in on your do-it list and ask yourself, what's the absolute best use of my time right now? It allows me to focus on point number 1, prioritizing in order of importance and urgency. And then it allows you to update the list daily. When you cross something off, you know what's next in line and what needs to transfer the next day if you run out of time. Feels pretty straightforward, right? What I need to do. But guess what? We don't always have to do it all. And that's where the second D comes into place, the delegate it. Delegating is a skill. Once you learn it, however, it can be the most beneficial tool in your toolbox. Delegating doesn't mean you just offload tasks to other people because you can't do them, you don't have the right resources, or you didn't have the time. Delegating is about helping others as well as helping yourself. Delegating allows us to lighten our load so we can concentrate on more important tasks, and delegating allows us to help the receiver learn and grow. When we help others by delegating, we're actually telling others we trust them. We are also allowing them to learn a new skill. They can gain a better understanding of how something works while they understand the value of being part of a team. Delegating gives other people responsibility while still allowing the accountability to fall with you. They may not do the task as well as you the first time, but this is an investment in their professional growth. And delegating allows you to help yourself. Once a task has been delegated, this should free you up to concentrate on the task at hand that you have to do, your do-it list. If you're finding it hard to let go of tasks for whatever reason, think of the time you could be saving and not depriving others of the opportunity to learn a new skill. Remember, sometimes when we delegate, we find that someone has a richness in a skill and brings something even greater to the table than when we did the task alone. And finally, the last D is to dump it. You need to ask yourself, will this task take me, the team, or the organization closer to our goals? If not, it shouldn't be a priority for you, at least not right now. Dump it may also mean you dump it off your list today or even this week while bringing it back into the mix when it's more urgent or impactful. Sometimes it's easy to get caught up in an interruption, a fun conversation, reading emails that don't impact your work right now, getting caught up in a request from somebody else that isn't a priority, starting on an easier or less urgent project, or just getting off track in general. Any of these items should hit the dump it pile, at least for today. So let's see what this looks like in time management speak. We're probably all very familiar with Stephen Covey's time management matrix. So we're going to talk more about this in future excellence management sessions, but this is a concept he covers in great deal in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And you can see it's broken down into 4 basic quadrants. Quadrant 1, it's the important and urgent tasks, your do it. Quadrant 2, important but not urgent, where the more time we spend in this area, the less time we spend in our other areas. Quadrant 3 often ends up being the not important and the not urgent. And quadrant 4 is the not important and not urgent. But this system doesn't always help you figure out what to do first. It's great seeing how you spend your time, but it doesn't always help us prioritize. So let's see how this translates into using our 3D method. So here's another way to look at our quadrants of time. Quadrant 1, our urgent and important. This is important enough for you to do, or do it. Quadrant number 2, maybe it's important but not urgent. Maybe it waits till later, until your time frees up from another task, or maybe it's not important enough for you to do and somebody can help jump in. So this is where they added another D. Show how they all overlap. This is your defer it. Then you've got your quadrant 3. Not important, but it's urgent, and it might be urgent to somebody else. So can you delegate this to a team member to help out, or can you defer this? And quadrant 4, not urgent and not important. Dump it at least until later. So how do you put this into action? Here's some questions to ask yourself and some actions that you can start taking today. So what are you doing every day that's better suited for somebody else to be doing? Can you break down some of your bigger tasks into smaller ones? Do you already keep a weekly list of your do-it items? Is your work area clear and clutter-free so you can concentrate and avoid distractions? We spend a whole lot of time wasting time looking for that document on our desk. So avoid those distractions and stay organized. Learn to say no to non-impactful items nicely. Maybe even start a conversation with, does this have to happen right now? And make the best use of your prime time and communicate your expectations clearly. That's of yourself and the expectations you have for others. There are things on this list that you could probably pick and do starting today. So what's holding you back? So let's start talking about some specific methods of prioritizing outside of the 3Ds. You might be more familiar with this method, the ABC method, than you realize, as it's used quite frequently in many of our paper day planners. I bet many of you didn't even know that your Outlook calendar or tasks can be set up to organize in the ABC format. A lot of people find this organization and prioritization method really helpful as it breaks down the urgency level of each task for you as you think through the method. You take your master to-do list and you pull off or mark or color code, depending on your style or medium, maybe it's a different Post-it note color, every task that is an A or vital. Then you make a second list of everything that's a B. It's really important. And a final list of every C item. Everything you want to do, would like to do, it's nice to get to, or the small easy jobs. Then, simply, you focused on your A's first. Tackle everything on your A list before moving to your B's, etc. Can you see how these tasks might fall into the quadrants that Stephen Covey talks about? The urgent, important ones are not so important, translating into our vital, important, and nice. They all tie together by ranking our priorities and finding the best use of our time. And if you don't get through all of your A's in one day, they become the top projects on the next day. However, if you have a really productive day and complete all your A's, you can add in your B's and so on. And when you have small amounts of time that don't allow you to do some of your bigger tasks, you can fill them in with lower priority items like your B's and C's to help you stay moving in the right direction. Remember, 20% of your activities will account for 80% of your success. So focusing on your A's alone should help improve your productivity and your success measures. Sometimes, each day or week, our priorities will shift, so our methods need to be as flexible as our work environment is. This is why a periodic review of our priority lists are important. If you can't set aside time daily to look at your lists, make sure you're at least doing it once a week, maybe even with the help of your manager or your supervisor. Another method is the ABC 1-2-3 method, and it's built upon the ABC method because once you establish your vital, important, nice list, your ABC, you can then use a number system to rank them in order. You can give a numeric value to each item based on its relative importance to you, your team, or your organization's goals. So first move through the 8 items and compare each one. Ask yourself which of these very important items is the most important of all. That item gets a 1 next to it, so it becomes A1 on your list. Proceed through the A's until you have a ranking next to each, then do the same with the B's and the C's. At the end of the exercise, you will have determined in which order you'll do things based on their relative value to you, your team, and the organization. You've just determined the sequence of events of your day, thus starting to gain control of your priorities. There's a real human tendency to skip the most vital and important things and move on to the easier tasks, the answering the emails, talking on the phone, because they're more fun or they're easier for us to accomplish. If you do this, your vital list will quickly turn into emergencies and you'll operate under great stress. The quality of your work can go down if you continue to work in this urgency mode. When you capitalize on your prime time, the time of day that you have the least amount of interruptions or you're the best, and you work your harder items into those times, you can start to move the needle in the right direction. Most days you won't finish everything you put on your list, but if you're handling your most vital items first, you will be making the biggest impact each day. We will go ahead and save an instruction sheet on the intranet page when we archive this session if you want to try to incorporate the ABC 1-2-3 prioritization method into your use of Outlook. So there's a way that you can set up Outlook to manage your tasks in the vital, important, nice with the 1-2-3 attached. So otherwise, if you're a pen and paper planner, this should be fairly easy for you to implement by just starting adding those A's and those 1's next to those tasks. And the last method we're going to talk about today, and there's thousands of others, is about our high impact tasks. And this is probably the most straightforward approach to prioritizing we're going to discuss today. And this method might be best for you if you already feel like you have a good handle on your master list, or maybe you don't have a large pool of resources to delegate jobs to. This allows you to really focus on the highest impact items each day. These are the tasks that have the biggest positive effect on what you're trying to achieve. If you complete them, they really change something for the better. They have an impact. They make progress. So how do you identify these tasks? So you've already created your to-do list. You've already started setting your priorities. Take a good look and ask yourself, are your top priorities really important to the organization? If not, rework them, maybe even with the help of your supervisor or manager. This is the shift towards tasks that really make an impact to the organization if you get them accomplished. Then try to integrate at least one of these tasks into your daily schedule and give it priority. This is where you might be able to implement new things and make some real change. In order to make progress every day, you have to think in terms of high impact tasks and add them to your schedule each and every day. You should focus on no fewer than one high impact task a day. This allows you to keep these tasks balanced between the other urgent and important tasks that need to occur. You can't spend all day, every day, on the highest impact, most innovative, creative ideas. However, it is important to work them in regularly. So is there opportunity for you to improve your daily to-do list? Take a moment and think about your tasks that you need to accomplish for the rest of the day. Are your most important and urgent items at the top of your list? Have you identified them and scheduled them into your day or the rest of the week? Do you know the resources you need to accomplish them? Just because you have them captured on a list in any medium doesn't mean you have your priorities in order. We need to take the time to determine what's most important and do that first in order to make it happen. Can you spare 15 minutes a day to ensure you're working on the most impactful things possible? You probably can't afford to use that 15 minutes for anything else. Remember, 80% of our success is about 20% of what we do. Let's make sure that 20% is the right 20%. So it's up to you to make it happen. Try to pick 2 actionable items from this list about what we learned today and put it into practice, whether that's refining your medium, getting it organized, capturing your master list details, breaking it down so that you can, batch projects together, making sure you're scheduling it and sticking to your schedule, holding those appointments with yourself as a high enough priority as you do with other people, and trying to prioritize ruthlessly. Take a moment to think about what these areas mean to you and what you could try to improve how you prioritize. Maybe grab your pen, paper, your cell phone, type it in your computer, and write them down. Pick the 2 that are most impactful to you. Share them with your neighbor. Send an email to your manager. Or share them at your next team meeting. Make it public so your team can help you stay accountable to trying to find something that works for you. And remember, most importantly, keep trying until you find a method that's right for your personality and your style. The bad news is time flies. The good news is you're the pilot. Remember, time flies when you're having fun, but it also flies when you're working hard on the right things. All it takes is for you driving in the right direction. So your takeaways for today: know your overarching goals. It starts with those scorecard goals and the goals for the organization, the goals for your team, and your personal goals. And then pick a medium that works for you to work your daily goals. It's okay if it's a piece of paper. It's okay if it's your Post-it note. And it's okay if it's an Excel spreadsheet. Just pick a medium that works for you and stick with it. And then create and use a master list. Break down that master list and start understanding where your most impactful tasks are. And then try a method to prioritize and keep trying until you find something that works for you. It might be the 3Ds. It might be the high impact tasks. It might be the ABC method. But keep trying until you find a way to narrow down your tasks every day. And then there's no need to wait. There's no need to wait for the right time. Start implementing these new tools today, even if that's just giving yourself 15 minutes at the end of every day or the start of every day to just simply get organized. If you want more information about prioritization, daily goal setting, visit the Excellence in Management page on the company intranet for more information. We'll archive this webcast, activities, newsletters, all in an effort to help give you more information. But if you feel like, in general, goal setting is tough for you, maybe you should check out the Excellence Management session on goal setting, the resources for goal setting, or even the HR tab, because setting our SMART goals is the first step to managing our day-to-day priorities. And don't forget to join us next time when we talk about how to transition these priorities from work to home and back again as seamlessly as we possibly can. So thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to complete the evaluation link located on the company intranet page under Talent Development, Excellence Management, or the link following this webcast today. We look forward to seeing you next time, and thanks again.